Hey there, dear viewers. Welcome to Obsessed with Werewolves. I'm so glad you're here because I know you, like me, have a passion for all things werewolf. From their captivating tales to their mysterious nature, we're going to explore it all. So, let's dive right in and satisfy our obsession together. Chapter 28 in Out and Out. Her heart thudded, eventually settling. Was this how her life would go? Would she have to spend the rest of her time living in a pack that blamed her for the destruction she caused and saw her as a burden? But she wasn't a burden. At least, she never tried to be. Ever since she'd moved in, she'd stayed under the radar. Tried not to cause commotions or step on any toes. And yet, somehow she'd done just that. She daily animated Jamie. Got Ben kidnapped. No self-pity. No more blame. There had to be something she could do. Some way she could help out instead of sitting on the couch twiddling her thumbs. A wet snout brushed her arm. Matthias sat next to her and leaned his warm, heavy weight into her. Harley wrapped herself around him and rested her cheek against his furry neck. She took comfort in her brother. At least she wasn't alone. She didn't have to steer the ship solo. Matthias, do you think we're cursed? Her wolf brother snorted. Is that a yes? He winced and moved so his head rested in her lap. Matthias. She rubbed behind his ears, her fingertips tracing indistinguishable patterns into his fur. Is it hard, not being able to talk? An ear flicker, but nothing else. She took it as a yes. Is it scary being stuck in there? Funny how the two Pierce children were both stuck in different forms. Harley would never change. Matthias wouldn't know what it was like to walk onto feet again. She continued to obsessively trace his fur. Sometimes I think I don't belong here. I might as well be human. Why am I living with a pack? Harley. Natalie poked her head out the front door. I've been looking for you. What are you doing out here? Matthias glanced up as Natalie sat next to Harley, but made no more movement. Apparently, he had no problem with the beta's wife. Natalie nodded and glanced out at the driveway and the trees beyond it. Did you need something? Not particularly. I wanted to check in. She smiled at Matthias. Though it looks like you two are doing fine. Matthias, it's nice to see you again. Matthias' ears twitched in acknowledgement. They were quiet a moment, each allowing the gentle chirp of the birds, the warm summer breeze, and the smell of trees to wash over them. Harley found it soothing. Nature had a way of reminding her of her roots, of where they came from. Though she'd never be a wolf and never be able to have that connection to the wildlife as others, she could still admire and appreciate its existence. Harley, I'm worried about you, Natalie said. She tucked her legs underneath her. I know so far pack life has been difficult for you. Harley tried to wave it off. I'm fine. Are you? She asked. I saw you rush off. And unfortunately, I heard what Jamie said. Natalie hadn't been in the room or even the kitchen when Jamie reminded her of her discretions. How Natalie tapped at one ear. Wolf hearing. She jerked her chin at Matthias. Why do you think this one was so quick to respond? Harley settled a hand on Matthias' head. Of course her brother heard. In his wolf form, he most likely heard quite a bit from the pack house if he was close enough. Jamie is a lot more reactive than most. She also doesn't know the full story. Natalie untucked her legs and sat back, leaning on her elbows. She looked to the sky. Your family meant a lot to this pack. Both of your parents were amazing additions. They were a part of what made Willow Creek what it was. Ask anyone around my age, and they'd be happy to share stories about your parents. We all remember your parents, and the good things they did, which was why losing them was so hard. Even the people who didn't agree with your father's decisions came together to mourn the loss. Confused, Harley frowned. My father's decisions. What do you mean? Natalie cocked her head to the side. I guess you were too little to really remember. Matthias' ears perked up and he sat up at attention. Matthias, you remember your father's practice, right? Matthias winced in response. Natalie's gaze flicked between the two of them. Neither of you remember. Harley shook her head. I know he was a doctor. He was. He helped our pack out quite a bit with shots, medicine, the occasional sickness. He was a great asset to the pack, but your father was curious by nature. He had to know how things worked, the way they ticked. He had his medical practice, though his background started in genetics. And his biggest curiosity revolved around shifters. So when he wasn't keeping the pack healthy, he worked with a team in a small covert tank to piece together the mystery of our wolves. And people didn't like that. They didn't mind. It was the experiments they didn't like. Natalie held out a hand to Matthias, who stepped forward to let her rub at his ears. Matthias would never say no to an ear scratch. Some members thought it was dangerous to mess with nature and the gifts Luna gave us. Though no one really knew exactly what his experiments were, we couldn't get too mad at him. He was the one to keep us all healthy. Harley picked at the sides of her nails. And you? What did you think? She couldn't look at Natalie as she asked. She was too afraid of the answer. Though Natalie didn't speak as if she harbored hatred for her father. Silence. I think your father was an amazing man, she finally said. He had his shortcomings and made his mistakes. It is not my role to judge his life's decisions. But when my mate Oliver was a teenager, he somehow came down with a bad case of pneumonia. Pneumonia. Wolves didn't get sick often. Their immune system was strong and oftentimes fought off the hardiest infections and diseases. It's rare, but sometimes sickness gets through our defenses. Oliver's case was one of the worst we've seen. If your father hadn't been there, Oliver would be dead. Natalie sat up, her hand tightening over Harley's. I have your father to thank for saving his life. I don't think Jamie understands the things your family has done for us, Natalie said. Try not to take it to heart. She loves Ben like a brother and is protective. I'm sure she wants to get him back, and it hurts her to be trapped here, unable to help. Her hurt is speaking for her right now. Harley leaned her head on Natalie's shoulder. The three of them sat content, on the porch, huddled together like family, like pack. I want to help, Harley said quietly. I'm worried about Will and everyone else. Whether you believe it or not. Harley, you are helping. By staying here, by staying safe, you're helping Will keep his peace of mind. Something he'll need if he has to go into battle. For now, that would have to be enough. Chapter 29. You told me you had this handled. Celine pinched the bridge of her nose, pacing the small confines of her tent. A phone felt hot against her ear. I did. We've hit some unexpected roadblocks. If I'd known you'd be so incompetent, it won't happen again. She wouldn't let it happen again. Not when Dominic's life was in the balance. Every day she visited him, he struggled more and more with staying in his human form. How long until he wasn't her baby anymore? It seems you are incapable of doing this by yourself. She ignored the additional gripe about her failures. When is the best time to visit? She asked. I need to find a time when she's alone, without witnesses. This endeavor is ridiculous. The girl doesn't know anything. There's nothing there. I've told you before. She won't have your answers. Harley Pierce might not know anything, Celine said, but she's her father's daughter. And his greatest achievement. We will find a use for her, as a test subject, if nothing else. A sigh over the line. I'll have some work ahead of me. I don't have much time left, Celine said. Some of us are careful and meticulous with our operations. You will wait, or you will get nothing. Celine's fist tightened. Dominic didn't have time for her source to set something up. Need I remind you of the wolf in my pocket? Don't test me. It is not my fault you have a desperation to ruin everything. A pause. Then, give me 2 days. 2 days. If this doesn't work, Celine threatened through tight teeth. I will start with the young wolf in our captivity. 2 days. Then Harley will be yours. Harley ripped a page in two. She sat on her bed, piles of crumpled sketch paper around her, and tapped her chin with her pencil. Why wasn't this working? It was not hard to copy a picture into a drawing. Especially something so easy as a lily. Serves her right for trying something different. She should stick to reading her books instead of drawing. A knock sounded at the door. She was frowning down at the page on her lap and messing intently with the shading. Come in, she called without looking up. What exploded in here? She snorted. It kinda did look like something. Her head snapped up. Will leaned against the doorway, his arms crossed. He smiled, hey. Seeing him there made the butterflies in her stomach come alive. He was here, safe. He took a step forward and she decided she couldn't resist. She scrambled off the bed and flew at him. Will caught her easily around the waist. She hugged him tightly, pressing her face into his collarbone. What are you doing here? We had to come back and grab a few things. Figured I'd stop by. Which meant he'd have to leave again soon. She refused to let that sadness touch her close and instead focused on the fact that he was here. She played with a lock of his wet hair. He smelled nice. Like soap and drain, a scent despite her awareness. You showered. I did. How long are you staying? His smile turned sad. Not long. We're picking up and going out as soon as possible. Though her heart dropped. He cupped her cheeks. Are you okay? How is everything here? Good, she assured him. If he was only going to be in town for a little bit. She didn't want to ruin that by telling him about the incident with Jamie. Cam's doing okay. I saw him. He placed a kiss on her forehead. He told me you two are keeping each other together. She nodded. Cam is worried. We all are. Hopefully he won't worry too much longer. You have a lead, Will said. It's a damn good one. That's why we have to go right away. Can't let the trail go cold. Warren peeked his head around the doorframe. Will, the party's leaving. Tell them I'll be there in a minute. Warren smiled gently at her, then disappeared. Harley smoothed out the navy shirt he wore. After his shower, he'd changed into a navy t-shirt, durable pants, and workers' boots fighting gear. So you're off again already. He tucked some of her brown hair behind her ear. I guess so. But this time, I have a really good feeling about things. They were quiet. Simply taking in the presence of the other. Harley tried to memorize his features, afraid that for some reason she might forget them. But she would never forget his dark hair and the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he laughed, or the quiet intensity with which he moved. Please be careful, she said softly. Always. He took a step back, looking like he wanted to say more. Do more. Harley wanted so much. She wanted to drop down and beg him not to leave her in this house that was still somehow not a home. She wanted to ask him to go with her and her brother somewhere, anywhere else. She couldn't do any of that. Her heart ached and already she felt his absence, though he hadn't left. So instead she reached her arms around his neck and pulled his lips to hers. He kissed her back softly, desperately, leaning forward and pulling her tight until her body pressed flush against his. He was hard muscle where she was soft skin, strength to her quiet tenacity. Reluctantly, he ended the kiss and rested his forehead against hers. I have to go. She closed her eyes, absorbing this moment. No, go, I'll be here when you get back. He gave her one more quick kiss and left. Bailey hesitated, then knocked on the solid dark wood of her father's door. Come in. She poked her head. The alpha sat behind his desk, typing away at his keyboard. He looked over the top of the monitor at her. Bailey, come in. Is everything okay? She asked. Alpha Mark hardly ever called her in for a meeting. He tried not to show his love for her, if at all, which meant oftentimes he'd ignore her. When she was little, they were close. He was her hero, everything she wanted in a father. Strong, capable, loving. They'd do normal things together like throw a ball around or go for walks. But when the pack started thinking it was weird for him to be showing so much love for a bastard child, he'd begun to grow distant. He'd taken their moments and started giving them to Jamie, because Jamie was the daughter of his mate, and Bailey was not. Only, Jamie never wanted to run in the rain or draw with chalk. She was into Barbies and music. She would rather paint her nails and gossip about boys in grade school than play frisbee or throw water balloons. Bailey remembered being cornered by Jamie one day when they were 8. Alpha Mark has just bought her a new expensive doll, and Jamie made sure to all the pack kids. See, Jamie had brandished the doll in Bailey's face. This is what the real Alpha's daughter gets. Daddy loves me. And Mommy says you'll never have what I have. Bailey had been a bit desperate for his love since. How are you feeling? The Alpha asked her. I know Benjamin is a close friend of yours. She wanted to know about her. She sat in one of the armchairs in front of his desk. I'm okay. It's been hard, but you are close to Cameron too. Yes, of course. Cam is a good friend of mine. He's taking it about as well as he can. It is a shame that something like this has happened. Again, Alpha Mark said. He fiddled with something small, passing it between his palms. Though I have a good feeling that in 2 days or so, this will be all wrapped up. Confused, Bailey frowned. Is Will getting close? Her father held up the little figure he'd been playing with. It was a little ceramic frog she'd painted for him in kindergarten. He hadn't thrown it away. Something like that, he said. It's a little disconcerting that all this has happened. He continued. Oh, it's strange. He grimaced and put a knuckle to his chin. What's strange? Alpha Mark blinked, coming out of a thought. Oh, it's nothing. Her curiosity piqued. Do you know something? He sighed and picked up a pen on his desk. I just can't help but notice the coincidence between Harley Pierce's return and the second attack. It was strange, but Bailey knew Harley. Harley wasn't connected with these people. She didn't know anything about them. Harley doesn't have anything to do with them. Alpha Mark stared at her intently. He always had a natural intensity about him. He was an alpha, always looking out for his pack, which meant he needed to be serious. Right now, though, he seemed to be trying to figure something out. What if I told you she did? Bailey blinked. I'm sorry. Dear, I know you're close with the girl, but my gut is telling me that there's something not quite right about Harley Pierce. He crossed his arms over his chest, the pen still in his hand. I mean, why would she come back now? Of all times, it's been 13 years since her family died. She wanted to reconnect with us. They were her family, or at least, close to it. Alpha Mark pointed at her with the pen. Precisely. Why now, though? And her brother's sudden reappearance. Don't you think that's a bit odd? I don't. He stood and came around the desk to crouch in front of her. Bailey, I know you don't want to hear this, but I think Harley Pierce intends to betray us. He settled a hand on her knee, the most fatherly gesture he'd given her in years. You would never want that for the pack, would you? Think about all the people here you love. Benjamin, William, Cameron, all the people she loved, all the people in the pack she'd come to care about, the members she'd worked her ass off to impress, to prove that she was strong, that she deserved to be the alpha's daughter, that she deserved love. Bailey, I need your help. Bailey bit her lip, thinking about Cameron, about their runs, the way they laughed and joked around, about how he made her chest take and her stomach feel lighter than air, about what it would do to her if something happened to him. What do you need me to do? Chapter 30. Ben's claw snapped. He cursed under his breath, pulling his hand tight to his chest. Motherfucker. That was the second broken claw, and each time it felt like agony. He grit his teeth and called on his wolf to grow the third claw on his right hand. This better work. The rusted hinge put up one hell of a fight. He sawed at it with both hands, putting his left thumb over the top of the claw to hopefully prevent it from shattering like the others. The claw curved, so he could only pick at it with the sharp edge. The dark trailer began suffocating him. He thought of getting out, of feeling the breeze against his face and the sun on his fur. He wanted it with an ache that pierced his chest. Freedom is just past these bars. He had to keep going, had to get out and warn Will, had to get Harley to safety. The rusted screw slowly chipped away. He picked and sawed, wiping the sweat from his forehead with the collar of his shirt. The box heated up almost unbearably in the daytime, especially with the door closed. That was the only way he could tell time passed, based on the temperature in the trailer. The trailer hadn't collected heat. The sun had risen but had yet to heat up. When the temperature rose enough that the heat was a literal weight on him, it was around noon. Right now, it had to be early morning. He sawed and sawed. After this, he'd always carry a Swiss Army knife around no matter what. Even if it wasn't going to be strong enough to slice through things, it had to be better than using one of his nails. He pushed on his claw with his thumb, urging it to cut faster. The rusty screw dropped with a small clink. Thank Luna. Ben braced his shoulder on the bars and pushed at the hinge. When it didn't work, he kicked at it. The hinge dropped. He picked the other screw out of the discarded hinge, then threw the hinge to the back of the trailer, where his captors wouldn't see it. The only thing keeping him in the cage now was the other hinge in the outside latch. The outside latch he couldn't do anything about, but the hinge. He stood and shoved at the bars with his wolf strength. The bars began to give. Perfect. Then sat down against the wall. Hey, Dominic. A week. Yeah. Came back. Do me a favor. A low groan from the other trailer. Dominic struggled to stay in his human form since Ben caught here. From the sounds of it, he didn't have much time left. I need you to change into your wolf. And when they come with our breakfast, cause a distraction. Can't. Change. You can. I know you're scared. But at this rate, you won't last much longer if you don't make a deal with your wolf. He's not trying to hurt you. He's trying to help you. You better not. His breath caught as surely another wave of pain hit. Be lying. Dominic wheezed, barely drawing in breaths. After a few minutes, there was a distinct sound of bones snapping. Ben waited. From the other trailer, a wolf growled. Paws thumped against the ground as Dominic paced. Just don't see why we're keeping the other one, a man said. His voice grew louder as he closed in. No doubt he'd been put in charge of breakfast duty. Ben scooted closer to the bars and pulled his knees up, draping his arm over them, a picture of ease. Dominic is Celine's son. He's the reason we're doing this in the first place, another man said. His voice sounded raspy like he smoked packs of cigarettes a day. I can do this. Ben took a deep breath. Will would be able to do this. Channel your inner will. He's not the only reason. Dumbass. He's just the catalyst. These mutants need to be taken out. I still don't think she can do it. Scientist or not. These beasts will only ever be beasts, Raspy said. The first guy, Mr. Egotistical Ashit, laughed. And that's why you and I do the grunt work. The latch on Ben's trailer opened, and with a tick, 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 the door slid upward. Ben winced and used his arm to block the sudden brightness. A grubby middle-aged man peered in from the other side. He shoved a tray of bread and oatmeal under the 4-inch gap at the bottom of the bars. Enjoy the fresh air while you got it. He smirked. So this was Mr. You've got 15 minutes. Then he left to give Dominic his. Only, when Dominic's trailer opened, the wolf on the other side snapped and growled. A loud bang sounded. Shit. The men jumped back. Fucking rabid beast. Ain't no way I'm getting close. Yeah, screw that. Dewey shut it. Ben channeled his wolf, asking for strength. When he felt the answering call, he pushed at the bars, bending the metal. His eyes kept shooting to the side. Please don't see me. Dominic continued snapping, hissing, growling, throwing himself at the bars. Anything to keep their attention. Damn, that is one large beast. I told you. A fucking aberration, mister, EA said. Fuck you and your goddamn Scrabble words. MREA laughed. Aberration is too many letters. Can't use it. Yeah, well, fuck you anyway. Ben shoved at the bars. Come on. It wasn't going to work. They would see him, and then it'd be all over. Dominic turned for nothing and now they were going to. The bars bent further. Far enough for a skinny body to fit through. He'd never been so happy to be lanky. Finally, his little Omega wolf nest paid off. Ben didn't think. Within seconds he slid through the gap, sucking in his stomach and turning his head to the side, getting stuck. What the fuck? Ben flew at the one closest to him. He plowed his shoulder into Raspy's stomach, taking him to the ground with him. The guy wheezed and stayed put. He jumped at the other one, mister. EA had pulled a gun out, but Ben spun and used his forearm to knock the gun aside. Then he planted his foot into Mr. EA's stomach. Incapacitate. He had to get rid of them. Otherwise, the escape would fail before it even started, mister. He fell back, grabbing Ben's wrist on the way down. Ben kicked him in the balls, then used his left arm to punch him in the throat. The second guy fell down gasping. Stop. The first guy, Raspy, had gotten up. Ben slowly raised his arms, a sign of surrender, the muzzle of a gun pressed into his lower back. If you want to keep your intestines, you'll get back into the fucking cage. The best part of being a wolf, the speed. Ben ducked and whirled before the human could react. He twisted Raspy's wrist. The man cried out and dropped the gun. And Ben still moved, coming around to wind his arm around his neck, cut off his oxygen. Will's voice coached in his head. If you can get your attacker completely unconscious, you'll be better off. Go to sleep, Ben said, holding on to the guy's throat. Raspy scratched at his arms and threw wild, unaimed punches at Ben's head. He landed one right at Ben's temple. Ben refused to let go. He kicked with his right leg, sweeping the guy's feet from under him. He went down, and Ben sank with him until his body went limp, to bodies laid on the grass. The adrenaline was molten fire in his veins. He ran to Dominic's cage. Ben stopped cold. Fuck. A key. Dominic winked and pointed with his muzzle towards the edge of the camp. A line of trees stood there. Freedom. I can't leave you, he said. Dominic whined again. No. I'm going to figure this out. He had to do it soon though, because in 5 minutes, the camp would realize their men were missing. Where would the key be? Celine. Celine would have it in her tent. No way she'd leave a key to her son's cage in the open. Ben searched the area. The trailers had been situated at the very edge of the camp, away from the people. It probably didn't want to get eaten by the big bad wolves. He flicked his gaze to the tents in the distance. No one had sounded any alarms yet. But they were bound to notice soon. Mree groaned. Shit. 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 The trailers were connected to trucks. Think Ben. He could literally drive Dominic away, but then he'd have to hotwire the car, which would take time, and everyone would notice the truck speeding out. There wasn't. Ben ran to the truck and opened the door, unlocked. Thank Luna. His eyes darted around the seats. Shit. It wasn't here. He was just going to have to cut his losses and hope to Luna Dominic survived. There. Under the seat on the passenger's side, a crowbar. Back at Dominic's gauge. He wedged the bar between the lock and pushed. These obviously weren't the most sturdy bars if he'd been able to bend them earlier. Hopefully, they had shitty locks too. If he ever got the chance, he'd tell them to invest in some better bars. Ben shoved. Behind him, Raspy moved to let out a pain-filled sound. Then, miracle of miracles, the lock snapped. Dominic jumped from the cage. Time to go, Ben said. The two of them sped for the trees, while one of his trackers gave a high whistle. You find something, Will called out. They'd started their search along the tree line of the meadow, and followed Ben's scent trail for miles until it cut off. It was at that point that his kidnappers had probably realized that dragging a tranquilized wolf around with them wasn't a good idea. They must have found some type of transportation for him. They'd combed the area for days and nothing. But then they found a discarded piece of cloth in a bush 30 minutes from where Ben was kidnapped. Normally, they didn't bother picking up trash, but this cloth had some of Ben's scent markers on it. And someone else's. If they couldn't track Ben, tracking one of his kidnappers was the next best option. Will followed Henry's whistle and stopped under our joke. Henry grinned down at him from one of the branches. Thought you might like to see this. He pointed at a spot in the oak, near where the trunk separated into branches. There, in a section, in the dark, gagged bark, was a red smear. Is that a blood smear? You bet your pretty ass it is, Henry said. Warren? Will called. They'd decided it would be better to have a few trackers in wolf form while they followed the trail, in case they ran into the people that kidnapped Ben. If they kidnapped him because he was a wolf, or they thought he was a wolf, then it might be easier to have a few humans in the mix. That way, if they came upon the camp, a camp filled with people who might be out to kill, they'd act like lost hikers. Lost hikers with some rather large pet dogs. Warren had offered to change. While Will's nose worked pretty well in human form, especially if he called on his wolf skills, there was nothing like actually being the wolf. In wolf form, his senses so heightened he could smell the tracks of each animal as they maneuvered the forest. Warren put his paws high on the tree to sniff at the smear. Then he pulled back and sneezed. Will laughed. A smoker. Warren shook his body, ruffling his fur. Nicotine covered every part of a smoker, even their blood. When your sense of smell was enhanced, the smell overwhelmed. However, it was easy to track. Which way are we going? He had a feeling they'd be traveling west. Even with the breeze, it was obvious the smoker headed that way. Warren lead them west. They trekked through the trees, the leaves and discarded twigs crunching under his boots. The vibrant plants and tiny low branches scraped at his clothes as he weaved through the area. At this rate, it'd take them forever to get Ben. The wolves had gotten pretty far ahead. They could easily duck, dodge, and zigzag through nature. Will and the rest in human form were large. It would take them a lot longer to find their way. They couldn't have hiked more than 20 minutes when Warren gave a sharp bark. Will planted his feet. His gaze flickered through the area, but there wasn't anything out of there. A steady thump of someone running. And with them, pause, another bark. Warren and the other wolves came dashing back. Warren, what the hell? You're supposed to be, will cut himself off as someone else broke through the trees. Ben stopped in front of him, his hands on his knees. A cut near his hairline leaked blood down his temple, and dirt caked his shirt and jeans. He gasped for breath. Behind him, an unfamiliar black wolf wind, wheezing, his tongue hanging out. Ben. Will blinked. How did we have to go? Ben wheezed. Will didn't remove his gaze from the wolf behind Ben, another mystery wolf. In less than a month. How did Ben escape? Did it involve the wolf? Did he? Ben grabbed Will by the shoulders. Harley is in trouble. Will's attention hyper-focused on Ben. What? The camp, Ben said. They're going to go after Harley. Chapter 31. Matthias, you have to stay here. Her brother whined and nudged his cold, wet muzzle against her calf. Harley walked to the pack house garage where Bailey waited in her little white sedan. Matthias was right at her heels, his warm breath fanning over the back of her knees. She spun, sympathy coating her features as she said, I told you, you can't come. Crouching, she rubbed under her brother's chin. Wolves don't belong at the mall. He licked her hand and sat, tilting his head to the side, very dog-like. Despite her efforts, a laugh escaped. I don't care if you look like a dog, she told him. Dogs aren't allowed at the mall either. In the garage, the car's engine spurred to life. I have to go. Love you. Sorry about that, she said as she climbed into the passenger seat. He's not right behind me, is he? Bailey asked. She put her hand on Harley's headrest and turned to look as she backed out of the garage. The last thing I need is to accidentally run over your brother. A grin ticked the side of Harley's mouth. I told him I'm going. If you hit him, it's his fault. It's just the mall, Bailey said as she sped off. Retail therapy is great for the soul. He should be happy you're getting out. Harley shrugged. Matthias is confusing sometimes. It doesn't help that he can't talk. They pulled into the vast mall parking lot around 11 o'clock. Because it was a weekday, not many people were out shopping. However, mall shoppers still filled the food court to the brim. Have you ever had Thai food? Bailey asked as they passed it. Nope. Is it spicy? Depends on the kind. It's really good though. We'll have to try it later. Bailey pointed at a store not far from them. There's that dress shop I told you about. Come on. Bailey had expensive taste. She dragged Harley to all the little Nakwa boutiques where the shirts were stringy and the dresses were missing half the back. She liked the style of the boutiques, but it cost more for a ring there than a shirt at one of her department stores. Harley, look at this dress. Bailey held up a red halter-neck summer dress. This would go perfectly with your dark hair. Harley snorted and put down the glow-in-the-dark pencil she'd been looking at. Is it more than $30? It's $30. She shook her head. I think my wallet would have a heart attack and die if I bought that. Are you kidding? This is so you. Bailey shook the hanger. Try it on. Please. Bailey, just try it. Harley groaned. Fine. The dress was beautiful. The vibrant red well with her hair and even gave some life to her plain brown eyes. And the halter neck kept it modest, though the shorter skirt made it flirty. She should never have tried it on, because now she wanted it with a ferocity that tightened her gut. What would Will think if he saw her in this dress? It was only a summer dress, yet it accentuated her shoulders and slimmed her waist. She imagined him coming home with Ben. He'd step through the front door, and she'd be waiting at the top of the stairs in the red dress. When he saw her, he'd freeze. Then she'd run down the stairs to fly into his arms. He'd smile at her, and his eyes would warm as he took her in. "Well, does it fit?" Bailey called out. Harley smoothed the sides of the dress down and pulled back the curtain. Bailey whistled. "Girl, you have to get that dress." She bit her lip. "I can't. It's way too much." "But damn, was it a pretty dress? If you don't buy it, I'm getting it for you." She ended up buying the dress, but only because it was 25 off. And then, since she'd already blown money she hadn't intended to, she went all in and got more shirts. "I'm never going to the mall with you again," Harley muttered. Bailey bumped shoulders with Harley. "You love me." She did. "Now on to Thai food," Bailey declared. They sat near the edge of the food court where the glass railing overlooked the fountain. Harley's plate was a strange mixture of noodles and vegetables and meat, and to be honest, she couldn't identify it all. Bailey frowned over Harley's shoulder. "Is that?" Recognition flashed over her face. "Oh my gosh, that's Blackthorn." She waved someone over. A middle-aged man with a terribly receding dark hairline appeared at their table. "My, if it isn't my dear Bailey." Harley tried to switch her frown to a smile, though she knew it looked politely fake. How did Bailey know this guy? Was he part of the pack? A family friend? Blackthorn focused on Harley. "And who might this be?" "Blackthorn, this is my friend Harley Pierce," Bailey said. Harley, this is my friend Blackthorn." Something about the interaction between Bailey and Blackthorn seemed off. Politely teasing, like they were only playing friends. Though Luna knows how many times Harley pretended to be friendly with people she didn't like. She'd get the details about him later. "Nice to meet you." Harley shook his hand. "Blackthorn used to coach my little league," Bailey explained. "He was the best baseball coach in the area." He frowned at Bailey, then coughed and crossed his arms. "I don't know about the best, but..." "You were," Bailey assured. "Well, for 6th graders, at least." She gestured to the empty chair beside them. "Sit for a bit." Blackthorn did, then pulled a pack of cigarettes from inside his coat pocket. Which was another weird thing about him. Who wears a jacket in the middle of summer? He stood a cigarette free. "Either of you got a light?" Bailey wrinkled her nose. No doubt to her sensitive senses, the cigarettes were a bit much. They were strong for Harley, and she didn't even have a wolf. "No, we don't." "You can't smoke in the mall anyway. Such a shame." Harley set her fork down. "I'm going to run to the bathroom." She shot Bailey a questioning look. "Will you be okay if I leave?" Bailey nodded. "Be right back," Harley said. The mall didn't have many restrooms. The only one Harley knew of was down another corridor, by one of the major department stores. When she was done, she headed back the way she came. A lady by one of the kiosks tried to stop her and explain why the curling iron she sold was better than any other. But Harley not only didn't want to spend more money, she also didn't want to leave Bailey with Blackthorn for too long. Why did he go by Blackthorn? Surely that wasn't his first name. Though Harley knew of some people at her old pack who went by their last names, so maybe it wasn't so weird. You're looking for reasons to find him weird. She couldn't help it. There was just something about him. At the table, Bailey and Blackthorn were in some type of intense discussion. "Sorry about that," Harley said and sat. She picked up her fork and ate more of her food. Already it had gotten cold and didn't taste the same. When it was hot and fresh, it was pretty tasty. She'd have to remember Thai food in the future. Blackthorn had his arms behind his head. "It's all right, my dear." "Actually, I should probably get going." He gazed at Bailey. "The missus is waiting for me outside anyway. It was nice to meet you." He put a heavy hand on her shoulder and grinned down at her. You two, is Harley Pierce. You two. That was weird, Harley said, eating more of her noodles. How long has it been since you've seen each other? Bailey frowned down at the ice in her cup. Her plastic container of food was empty. She must have finished while Harley was in the bathroom. Quite a while. Well, I'm ready to go when you are, she said, pushing her food away. You sure you don't want more? Bailey crunched on a bit of her ice. You've got half a plate there. I'm good. It's cold and doesn't taste the same. If you're sure. Bailey checked her phone. I've got a patrol shift in half an hour anyway. We should go. They threw away their garbage and went back to the parking lot to search for Bailey's car. At some point, while they were inside, dark, ominous storm clouds had accumulated. Rain now poured from the sky in large sheets, puddles turning the parking lot into a minefield. And now they couldn't find the car. I don't understand, she said. I swear we parked under the 5C marker. I know we did, Bailey said, but I'm not running out there until I know which direction to run. Harley peered through the rain. I can't see a thing. Are you sure you'll be okay to drive? Because we can wait here. We'll be good. Bailey pointed. I think that's it right there. You wait here. I'll bring the car around. While Bailey ran into the rain like a brave soldier, Harley piled their bags right outside the door. The rain had brought a bit of a cold front that pulled at her clothes and messed with her hair. Damn, she hated misty wind. Sucky weather. Right. Blackthorn came out of the doors. Do you guys need any help? Harley frowned. Didn't he leave earlier? She hugged herself. The wind snapped at her shirt and snuck under her sleeves to wrap its chill around her bones. She couldn't wait to get into the nice warm car. I think we're fine. Thanks. Harley grinned politely at him. She looked back at the parking lot. The rain cast a misty fog over the area. She should have still been able to see Bailey's headlights. Where was she? Harley yawned. Tired. Blackthorn asked, why wasn't he leaving? And where was his wife? Exhaustion struck swift and hard. 1 minute she was fine. The next, her whole body felt heavy as cement. Harley frowned. The muscles in her legs went weak. She blinked hard and shook her head. Fatigue threw itself around her and pulled. She leaned against the brick wall near the door. Where was Bailey? Her eyelids got heavier and then the fear kicked in. This wasn't normal. Nothing about this was normal through dimming vision. She saw Blackthorn check his watch. About 20 minutes. I told her it wouldn't take that long. Bailey's car pulled up to the curb. Sweet. Cold relief appeared briefly, then disappeared as Bailey came up to her. We need to get her into the car, she told Blackthorn. You have those plastic ties. In the trunk. They grabbed her by the upper arms and it was all she could do to keep awake. Her body was like a rag doll, sagging between them. She's not going to like you when she wakes up. Bailey's face appeared over her. She won't even remember. Harley fell into oblivion. Chapter 32. Will had never run faster in his life. His feet flew over the ground as he bolted back to the pack house. Distantly, he knew the others followed behind him, though he couldn't focus on that. All he could focus on was getting to the pack house. His wolf howled in his chest. To the beast. His mate, the woman he declared his own, even if she didn't know it, was in trouble. That was unacceptable. As he ran, his brain threw him terrible images. Images of Harley dragged along the ground. Harley tied up, the ropes digging into her arms, blood dripping down her temple. Harley motionless on the floor, a dark red puddle staining the cement around her. His heart clenched in his chest. No, he did get there in time. He refused anything else. He broke through the front door. Natalie was in the living room sewing shirts and a pile of socks. At a sudden entry, she turned around. "Will, where is she?" he asked. "Go, Harley." He barked. "Where is she?" Natalie was calm as ever, despite him running in the house like a maniac. For some reason that made him want to shake her. Didn't she see his frantic entrio? She went with Bailey to the mall. It's a girl's day. At Will's distress, she frowned. "She'll be fine. Bailey's strong. She'll keep her safe." "Natalie, when did they leave?" Ben asked, catching the conversation as he came through the door, without his new rogue friend. At Ben's entry, Natalie jumped up. "Ben, oh my gosh. Wait until Mark." Ben grabbed her by the shoulders when she went in for a hug. "This is important. The people who took me, and look what they did to your forehead. They're after Harley." "But shut her up. What mall did they go to?" Will asked. Natalie's eyebrows scrunched. "The one right in town." "Will," he turned to Ben. "I need you to fill an alpha mark." Ben nodded. The back door opened, and they paused. Will held his breath, holding on to the hope that it was Harley and Bailey back from the mall, and that he could wrap her in bubble wrap and stick her in her room until they took out the sons of bitches after her. "Natalie," Cam called. "Have you seen?" He broke off as he hit the living room. When he saw Ben, utter relief swept over his expression. He jerked Ben into a hug. "Thank Luna." Joyous reunion later. Ben stepped back. "Harley's in danger." "Danger." She went to the mall. "I know you don't like shopping. The sales never killed," Will growled. "Enough. I'm going." He'd leave them all in the house twiddling their thumbs. Harley didn't need this. "I'm coming with," Ben said. He whirled on him. "Used got back. No way you'll leave again. Alpha mark can be filled in later. Besides, I will be able to recognize them." Ben tapped his nose. His wolf snarled. He was wasting time arguing. "You know what? Fine. Your life. I'm coming to," Cam declared. A car door slammed outside and, once again, his heart caught in his chest. Bailey came through the front door, tears shining on her cheeks. They took her. They took Harley. Fear, worry, fury. Will had so many emotions hit him at once that he actually staggered back. "What happened?" His voice came out more of a growl. No doubt his eyes were yellow. Right now, he was more beast than human. Bailey only cried. Natalie guided her to the couch. "It's all right, sweeties." Will inside him. His wolf snarled and yanked at his chains. "It's not all right. How could you lose her? How could you let this happen?" Cam stepped into his path. "Will, you need to calm down. Don't tell me to fucking calm down, Cam." From outside, a wolf howled in anguish. "Matthias, you can't help her until you're level-headed. Rage makes you stupid, you know that." He did, though a part of him was panicked enough not to care. He took a deep breath, and when he centered himself as well as he could, he looked to Ben. "Can you lead us back to the camp?" Ben nodded. "Good. Let's go." He was almost to the door, ready to take on an army, if they were an army for Harley. Alpha Mark marched into the room. "Don't you dare." The command stopped him in his tracks and brought his wolf to attention. There was animal in that tone. The Alpha's beast had come out to play. Will's own stood taller. Right now he couldn't do anything about Harley, but he'd be damned if someone stopped him from even trying. Alpha Mark's gaze stopped on Bailey on the couch. Natalie had tucked her tight to her side and rubbed soothingly at her back. "Are you all right?" Bailey wiped at her cheeks and nodded. "What happened?" Sniffling, she sat up. "We went to the mall. Went shopping. Had lunch. Harley had to go to the bathroom, so I watched our bags. And then She never came back. Wolf frowned at his friend. Somehow, he never thought Bailey'd act like this. She was such a strong-willed individual and go-getter. He never imagined a traumatic event would send her out of control. The pack wolves trained for a cool, calm demeanor after an incident. If anything, he thought she'd led the charge to get Harley back. "Did you check the bathroom?" Ben asked. Bailey shot him a look. "Do you think I'm an idiot? What made you think she was missing? If this was really nothing, if Bailey accidentally left Harley at the mall, he'd strangle her." Bailey hesitated, and he lost all patience. "Spit it out." "Fear," she said. "In the bathroom." I could smell her fear. I followed her scent trail to the parking lot, but they'd put her in a vehicle and left. How would they have gotten her from the bathroom without people noticing? Cam wondered. "It doesn't matter." Will crossed his arms. "We know where their camp is. If we go now, we can have her back before tomorrow morning." Jamie entered the doorway. "What's going on?" Alpha Mark ignored her and spoke to him. "We need to regroup and go in together." Will grit his teeth. "Harley doesn't have that kind of time. It would take too long to get the pack together. They were spread all across town. They could be doing anything to her. You are not going out to get yourself killed. Especially not for one girl who has caused nothing but trouble." Disgusted, Will headed to the door. At this rate, he'd go in and save her himself. "You go after her. William, don't bother coming back." Jamie guessed Dad. "That's fine," he said. "I don't want to be in a pack that leaves its members to die anyway." Then he left the pack house, maybe for the last time. Chapter 33. Harley, this won't be enough. Need more. There was a sharp pinch at the skin of her upper arm. She groaned and turned her head the other way. Her brain felt heavy, and simply turning her head was exhausting. Where was she? Had she fallen asleep? Reaching for clarity was like scooping water. It slid through her fingers and absolutely nothing felt solid. Not her body. Not her mind. Not her thoughts. Distantly, she wondered if she should be afraid. Though all her murky brain could scrape together was confusion. Done for tests already. Need time. Don't have time. Someone was frustrated. The tone was forceful, though still didn't help clear whatever fog she'd been stuck in. "If you don't give her time, you'll have no subject," a deep voice hissed. "You're smart enough to know that." She faded out again. The next time she awoke, it was because the aching in her wrists made it feel as if they were on fire. She pulled them up, only to groan at their sudden stop. They were tied down. Grogginess was a second layer on her skin, but somehow she opened her eyes. Above her, a muted yellow tarp served as a ceiling. Its weight as the howling wind outside raged against it. A tent. She'd been tied on some makeshift table in a large bouquet yellow-colored tent. Her head felt like a cement block as she lifted it to look down at her body. She was naked, a large red and white blanket pulled over her and tucked under her armpits. They'd let her keep her butterfly necklace, and the smooth silver was a tiny comfort against her collarbone. Skinny plastic ties strapped her wrist to the table end. At some point, she'd had a knife stuck in her arm. When her mind caught up on the situation, her blood froze in her veins. It all hit her quickly, brutally, like a freight train. The mall, it's the mall. Blackthorn. Bailey. Her heartbeat traced. How could Bailey, one of her first and greatest friends in the pack, have given her away like that? Without any indication, she'd handed Harley over to the people who'd kidnapped Ben. Was he nearby, strapped down on a table in another tent being prodded? What the hell did they want anyway? She had no use as a test subject, which is what it appeared they wanted her for. She wasn't even a wolf, unless she was here for an experiment. She yanked and scratched at the ties cutting into her wrist. There had to be a way out of here. The tent flaps opened. A tall, blonde woman in combat boots and a lab coat strolled in. When she saw Harley awake, she stopped. Harley didn't respond. Her insides might feel like unsteady jello, and the fear and anguish might consume her, but she refused to outwardly show it. Whoever these people were, whatever they wanted, they wouldn't be getting it from her. Not willingly. These were most likely the people responsible for her family's death. They were the reason she'd never see her father again. The reason she'd never get a chance to connect with her mother. They had trapped her brother in a prison of a beast. The woman pulled out a syringe from a small set of plastic drawers in the corner. She tapped the needle and stepped up to Harley's IV. Her gaze traveled down Harley's face and throat, and she must have noticed the tightness of her jaw because she said, "Relax. Harley, you're about to do great things. Cheer up." Then she plunged the needle into the line running down her arm. Within moments, sleep dragged her down again. "Celine, don't." Strong, skinny fingers yanked Harley by the shoulders, jerking her awake. Harley's eyes flew open, only to find a picture of pure rage before her. "What did he do?" The lady asked through gritted teeth. "What is the secret?" "Celine." The woman, Celine, curled her lip. "You tell me what he did and maybe I let you walk out of here." "Do you hear me?" A familiar face stepped up behind Celine's shoulder. "She has no idea what you mean," Blackthorn said. How could someone look both bored and stern at the same time? "Yes, she does," Celine insisted. "Why don't we let her tell us?" He shot her a lazy smile, as if that alone would get her to talk. "Fine," Celine grit out. Harley waited. She had nothing to give them, even if she knew what they were talking about. She wouldn't give this murderer and her team of merry men a single thing. Not when they'd taken so much from her. Celine waited, her impatience steadily climbing. When Harley only blinked at her, Celine dug her nails painfully into her shoulders. "Where is it?" Blackthorn pushed an arm between the two of them and scooted Celine backward. "Why don't you go cool off, my dear? Don't you dare patronize me, you cocksucking." Blackthorn's grin grew. Harsh. He focused on Harley. Harley, first off, might I apologize for our less than ideal introduction." She wanted to spit in his face, or scream obscenities at him. Not talkative. "All right." He crossed his arms. "Well, it seems we're at a standstill. You have something we want. And, maybe, we have something we can give you." Then he had to be talking about Ben. "Your father was a smart man," he continued, "smart enough to figure out how to stop a wolf shifter from changing. All we need from you is that knowledge, and you can go on your way. Go to hell." Blackthorn teased. "Been there. Done that. Got the bumper sticker." Blackthorn, Celine's lip curled. She had no patience for his jokes. If it stopped Celine from throttling her or drugging her, she'd gladly accept any humor Blackthorn was willing to dish out. No, really. Have you seen my truck? There's a bumper sticker on the back that, wisely." He cut himself off. "Anyway, Harley, my dear, we'd really appreciate any information you can share about your father's recent discoveries." "He hasn't had any discoveries, because you killed him." "A mistake on our part." He gestured to Celine, but Celine's realized the error of her ways. "Haven't you, Celine?" Celine swallowed. "I have." It was a lie. Clear as glass, written on her face. "See, so if you could just, is this how you get what you want?" Harley broke in, a burst of disbelieving laughter flowing off her lips. "You kidnap people and try to convince them that you're better now. That you're actually the good guys. We are doing a lot more for this world than you beast. We're helping you. You're helping you, Salim said. And the scientific advancements I've made will sell for millions of dollars. Millions of dollars. Her family had been killed so that this woman could make money off of some discovery. Some research she'd done with her father. Research. With genetics. The answer had been right in front of her and she'd never known it. She should have done the research. Should have looked into what her father had spent his time working with. Maybe then she'd have seen. Maybe. Should have. It didn't matter. It was all in the past now. Her father died with his research. And now, she might die because of it. I have nothing to give you. Her voice wavered, giving away her fear and breaking down her false confidence. I promise. Nothing. Salim laughed. Of course you don't. Blackthorn analyzed her. You really don't. Do you? I don't. I swear. Please, just let me go. Her wrists spun with every movement. All she could think about was how she was their mercy. In the horror movies, the victim always pleaded with the attacker. Please don't kill me, or I won't tell anyone. I swear. She'd made fun of them often, and laughed at the fact that they gave away their integrity so easily. But now, she'd have told them anything they wanted to hear if it meant walking away. Salim pinched the bridge of her nose. She'd moved past anger now. Instead, exhaustion weighed on her shoulders. She dropped them. I can't believe you let me hope, she said to Blackthorn. Blackthorn shrugged. At least we didn't come out empty-handed. We've got the results. Salim paced, drawing her thumb over her bottom lip. This just means we have to find a way to work backward. They had the results of what? Either way, she didn't want to say to find out. I'm happy for you. Really? But I promise if you let me go, Celine frowned at her. Let you go? Celine. Blackthorn's tone warned. We let you go. We lose everything. Celine went back to the drawer in the corner and pulled out another syringe. The panic shot down her limbs and had her squirming. No, please. I promise. I won't say. Celine lined up the needle for injection. Harley, you are the results. She pushed the stopper, sending Harley back into the darkness. Thank you so much for joining me in this obsession with werewolves. I hope you've had a great time and can't wait to come back for more. Remember to subscribe, leave your comments, and share this passion with others. Until next time, keep being obsessed.